Good evening. Okay, so tonight's Thursday. I know it's our last video before the break, so we're going to power through. It's going to be great. We're going to put all of what we've learned this week together. We're calling this Factoring Completely. So we're going to put GCF and all the factoring stuff that we did with perfect squares and the thing before that, the day before. We're going to put all that together tonight. So it's really important that you guys know the steps to this process, how we all put it together. So I'm going to really review over that first, okay? So the first thing when you see, let's look at number 1. When you see a trinomial answer like this, okay, the first thing you should do is look for the GCF. That's your first thing. And so that's why I taught it to you that's the first thing we learned, was GCF. You have to look at all the numbers here and figure out what do they have in common, numbers, factors, and letters. Okay, so here we have a 2, a 6, and an 8. The greatest common factor is going to be a 2, all right? They all have a 2 in common. Do they have an x? No. So we're going to just factor out the 2. So that's going to leave us with just an x squared. 6 divided by 2 is a 3. X is still there. Negative 108 divided by 2 is going to be a negative 54. Okay? So we just did step 1, which was factor out the GCF. Now, our step 2 is to see if it's a trinomial. Yes, it is a trinomial. Step 3, see if it's difference of squares. It is not a difference of squares. This is not a squared term, neither is 3x, so it's not difference of squares. It's not a difference of squares. So now, see if it's a trinomial, we're going to factor it. Repeat step 3 as needed. And what that means we're going to factor back to binomial. That's what you guys really like doing on Wednesday in class. That's that backwards FOIL. So we're going to end up putting our answer in binomials like this. Remember? Okay, so let's look at our answer, 54. A negative 54. We have to think about the factors of negative 54. And when we add them together, they need to equal 3x. Well, right now I'm thinking of 9 and 6. Have you thought about that? So if we have a positive 9 and a negative 6, that's going to give us a 3x. So we have x and an x, positive 9, negative 6. Remember this? Okay, but here's the deal. We can't forget about this guy. He just happens to live on the outside. And that's it. That's the answer. Right here. We don't do anything with him, but we have to stick him on the answer because he still belongs in this whole thing. Because here's the thing. We could factor this whole thing out, and it would equal this. But then we would have to distribute that 2 inside to get it back to this. And to check our answer, we always want to come back to the end. So that's why that 2 needs to stay there on the outside, because it's going to distribute into it at the end. Okay? All right. So that's the answer. Let's go to example 4. Let's go to 4. Okay? So we're going to go with step number 1, factor out the GCF. GCF. Okay. Looks like our GCF is going to be a 4. No letters, because that doesn't have a letter. So it's going to leave us with p squared plus p, and then 8 divided by 4 is going to be a minus 2. Okay? So now we have to go to step 2. Is it a trinomial or difference of squares? It's not difference of squares because nothing times 2 is not a square. 2 times 2 is 4. 1 times 1 is 1. So 2 is not a square. So it is just a regular trinomial. So we're going to say P, remember, so now we're going to just factor it. P and p make p squared. Factors of 2 are just 2 and 1. But we want to get to a 1p. So that's going to give us a positive 2 and a negative 1. Right? That's going to be my factors. That equals a 1. And we got to stick that 4 on the outside at the end. Let's do number 5. Number 5. Okay. Look and see if we can factor out a GCF. What we're going to do first. Yes, we can. We can factor out a 9. And we're left with 9a squared minus 1. Okay? Well, right there we have a difference of squares. 9 is 3 times 3, and 1 is 1 times 1. So, now, I mean, this is easy.
What would you like to send? You can ask me to send an email or send a text message.
Nothing. Sorry, guys.
Okay.
Siri is crazy. We have a 3a plus 1 and a 3a minus 1. Remember, that's our difference of squares. Holy moly, I'm sorry, guys. I wasn't even showing you. So number 5, let me start over. Number 5, what I did here is I factored out a 9. That was our first step, GCF. I found the greatest common factor, factored it out. Okay, so I was left with a 9a squared minus 1. So then I look at this here. It's not a trinomial, it's a difference of squares. 3a times 3a equals 9a squared, and 1 times 1 equals 1. Okay, so we had to do a plus and minus just like we do a difference of squares. But we can't forget about this 9. We stick him on the end, and that's our whole answer. Okay, last, let's do number 6. Can we factor anything out? No, we cannot. There's nothing to factor out. We could factor out a 1, but that's pointless. Okay, so we're just going to say, we're going to skip to, I mean, we could put a 1 there if you guys want to. It's just going to be the same on the inside. So let's go ahead and not have the 1 there, and let's just factor this. So, what times what equals m to the 4th? M squared, right? Because when we multiply exponents, we add them. So m squared times m squared equals m to the 4th. And then this is a square. So that's going to be difference of squares. Okay. Now, we can't stop here because this isn't completely factored. We still have a difference of squares right here. Check and see if there's a difference of squares. There is. So what we have to do is we need to factor that now. And we don't factor this one difference of squares because it's not difference of squares. Difference of squares means subtraction. This is addition. So we're going to leave that one. That's not a difference of squares. Here's where our difference of squares comes in. This is a difference of squares. So it's just m minus 2, m plus 2. See? We just factored this difference of squares. So your final answer, you just need to make sure there's no more difference of squares that are left in it or GCFs. But you can factor out more. And that's how you do that. We just factored completely. We put everything we learned this whole week all together, and we did awesome. So, tomorrow in class, you're going to do one more thing of homework. Okay? One more thing of homework. And then we are done for a week. So, good job, guys. I'll see you tomorrow when it's Friday and Valentine's Day. Bye.